Hey, most entrepreneurs still believe effort equals results. Well, I'm here to tell you in 2026, that is dangerously outdated. Hi, my name is Jeff Harrison, along with my co-host.
Leslie Spoor of
And
Concierge Business Solutions.
There you go. And we're going to talk about something today that we're actually launching a series, and it's called the 2026 Entrepreneur Reality Check Series. Let me pull it up here. And what it basically is, and we can go through this, is I think we're at that crossroads there, the fork in the road. Is either you can take the left road or you can take the right road. And it will definitely determine your outcome. And it's drastically different, Leslie. You want to walk us through this?
Yeah, I mean, the picture that we've got on the screen looks a bit like Armageddon on the left there. It's a little dreary, but okay. And what we're saying is that if you don't find clarity in your business, you will end up overwhelmed and overworked. Most all of the small business owners I know end up with burnout. Time is such a premium and they don't have any. Whereas if you put in the right systems in place and you understand what your role really is in your business and you're able to work on your business instead of in it, then you have a much easier path to walk, as I like to call it, the happy path through your business. And it makes such a difference. And most of us have been stuck on that left-hand side of this image, the dreary image, for far too long. And so we're here to talk today about how do we scooch over on that path to the happy side.
Yeah, and there's a saying, I haven't heard people say it in quite some time. It's like, do you know the definition of insanity? That's doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results.
That's
And
true.
and as it says here, is like, hey, what happens is it's the same struggle, different day. And what we're going to share with you, and we're going to do it in 4 series. We're not going to do it all at one time. So today we're going to talk about why working harder is making you broke. And I don't mean just financially. I'm talking about emotionally, physically. What are the broke? It maybe just wearing you out. But we're not just going to point out, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. We're going to say, hey, what could you do differently? And Leslie kind of sprinkled that in there about systems and operations and things of that nature. You got to have those in place. But if they involve you, that's probably not the way we want to do it, which is in the hidden costs of being the bottleneck in episode 2. So if you're ready, let's get into episode 1.
All righty.
All right. So let's talk about that first. The first thing is, effort is broken. It used to be one of those things, and it's one of those things that's like, when we were growing up as kids, it was like, if you did the right things, the old things of like more elbow crease, put your nose to the grindstone. Those were all the sayings of the day. And there's a generation of us out there that say, I'll just outwork my competitor and therefore I will win.
Right.
Is that still there, Leslie?
It is still there, but it isn't correct. I mean, I was guilty of this. I wore this like a badge of honor, being so busy all the time working. As you know, I used to work 36 hours at a time, at least once a week, if not twice a week, and fall asleep at my desk. And, I was kind of proud. It was sort of a hero complex about how if I worked harder, I would be better than other people, not better than human beings, but better than other businesses similar. And it's just not true. All you're doing is exhausting yourself, twisting yourself up, breaking yourself. It isn't, money can be coming in, clients can be coming in for all intents and purposes from the outside. Your business can look like it's successful, but if you aren't working on the business, if you think that putting extra hours in, right, Jeff? If you think that if you're putting in lots of extra hours, that you're getting ahead, you are not. All you're doing is wearing yourself out.
So true. So true. And it's one of those things why working harder is making you broke. And I know when we first talked about this, it's like, well, it may not make you broke. We're not talking about financially.
Right.
It's waking up. I mean, and I know people right now today, that have this thought is like, I've got to get off this treadmill. I don't even know how, but I
Right.
have to keep working because things are changing so rapidly and there's so much pressure on us to succeed that there's no stopping. It feels like, getting on a treadmill and you're kind of finding the rhythm and somebody comes over, those damn, coaches, and they
Mhm.
increase the speed and you're like
Right.
running again. And it's like, oh my God, it just drives me crazy. But it just doesn't actually work, does it, Leslie?
No, and actually, I just finished a 5-day challenge for a lady who said she had a business coach before me that was telling her exactly that, to do more,
Mm,
do more, do more, and we completely reframed that to say, you know, what do you have what do you have to do for your business to be successful? What does it take for you? Not how much can you do, but what specific activities do you add that um, complete work toward the goals that you have for your business, right?
mm.
Because everything that the owner does should be furthering those goals. They should not be busy work, which is really easy. And busy work can be delegated or eliminated depending on what kind of work it is. And so you need to find a better way, because when this says working harder is making you broke, he's right. Right, Jeff? It doesn't mean financially, it means physically and emotionally and spiritually. And that's one of the reasons so many businesses fail in the first 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's one of two things that cause businesses to fail. Well, it's one of three things, but I really believe that most businesses fail in the first 2 years because either people don't understand the right work to do, or aren't willing to put in the effort to do it. And I don't mean excessive effort, I mean the right effort, or they don't have enough cash to keep themselves going. And most of the time, it's not the cash. Most of the time, it's the effort. And it's either too much effort or not enough effort, or not enough of the right effort, because people don't know what the right thing is to do. So they break physically. I mean, I think I've told this story before about, I used to work all night long and I'd send emails out without regard to what anybody else was doing, to send them out. And one of my licensees said to me, if I have to work this hard, I don't want to be in this business. And I was thinking, what does she mean?
Mm.
What do you mean when you say that? Well, getting an email at 1 or 2 in the morning creates the perception that you are working 24/7, whether you are or you're not. If I choose to work at night because it's easier for my life to get stuff done when the phone's not ringing, that does not necessarily mean that I'm working all night, right? But that's how it's perceived.
Mhm.
And so she took it right to heart and said, "I don't want to do this if it's that much effort." So the bottom line is what I'm trying to say to you is that you have to know what the correct effort is, and reframe your focus from working in your business to working on your business.
Well, on that same note, because I have been the receiver of that, of like feeling like crap, I can never take any time off. And so what happens is we have used the convenience of our email or text to say, hey, when an idea pops in my head, I'm going to send it to Jeff. I'm going to send it to Leslie, no matter what time that is. It's
Yeah.
almost like being in the shower and all of a sudden you have this idea. And by the time you get out, you forget. No, no, no. Now your phones are freaking waterproof and you send the email or the text.
Yeah.
And so as you said, that gives a perception of, hey, they must expect me to be on all the time. And this was just a truism here, and full disclosure, this was me just last week. And it made me in this situation where I felt like I've got to have a conversation with my wife because I've got to stop doing this. I've
Did
got
you
to
send
get
me a
out of
text?
this.
Did you send me a text from the shower?
No, no, I
Okay.
didn't. I didn't.
Good.
So my point
Good.
is so what happens is I personally have to reframe this. Meaning,
Right.
just because somebody sends me something, you're guilty of it. And I don't
Yeah.
mean guilty, but you'll send me something, it'll be 12:30 at night. I go to bed around 9:30. I'm
Right.
done by 9:30, right? But I'm a really early riser. And so people could misunderstand that of like, well, I'm answering emails and sending texts at 5 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't mean I'm working, but
Right.
it's like access. So I have to reframe that and say, wait a second. They didn't send that to me because they need me to answer right now and stop what I'm doing. I have to stop having dinner and
Right.
take care of this. It means that was convenient for them to send me a text or an email during that time. And I have to establish those boundaries. We all have to do that.
Right.
Or say, hey, it's like if you had a brick and mortar store, unless you're a 7-Eleven or a convenience store and you open 24/7, you have hours. But those have kind of gone away, haven't they,
Yeah.
Leslie? This perception of they've gone away?
Oh, yeah, all over the place. I mean, the instant response and instant access that people not only engage in themselves, but also expect from other people. I had to tell one of my new hires just the other day, just because I send you an email after hours does not mean you need to respond to it or take action to it or on the weekend. You need to, unless I say it's an emergency or I will call you if it's an emergency, you do not need to take action until the next business day.
Mm.
I just send them when I think about them. And so don't, because people get overwhelmed by that. But
Yeah.
but on the same token, I know you do. I know you do because sometimes I send you stuff and I don't expect you to react at all and you're still doing it. And I'm like, no, don't do that. So, but I do it too, but I don't, for me, it's just habit. I just do it. If I see it, I respond to it. And that can create a whole chain reaction of people back and forth talking when they should be resting or with family or, enjoying their dinner. It's a bad situation for our whole society. I think that as a whole group of people, we have all gotten to the point where we just expect instant response on everything.
Well, I have tried to do this more and more. In fact, I did it with 4 emails today. I got up again very early and I sent some messages out, but then I hit the schedule send button and I schedule them to go out at, I know, their normal working hours.
Right.
Right. And I think the only thing I wish that would happen is right now on my phone, on my mobile phone, I don't think you can schedule send things from your mobile, but on desktop you can. So I think for myself, I'm going to try to do that almost every time if it's out of those hours, let's say between 9 and 5, before 9 and after 5, I'm going to try to do the schedule. But I'm also going to let my clients know that that's the hours I work. And if you do something afterwards, I will get back to you in the next business day and I'll take care of it unless it is an emergency. And
do you
then
have
of course
do you have emergencies in digital marketing?
Never. Everything it seems like it's always a 911 when it's really not, right?
Yeah, in my world, everything is a 911, right? If a client reaches out to you, it's usually because they need something right this minute, because that's what we do, right? But I was wondering if on digital marketing, is there any emergency?
There's been times, I'll give you a perfect example where maybe one of my staff, they've put something out and I'll give you a perfect example. One of my staff members, a former project manager, she didn't get fired or anything. She left and for health reasons, but she accidentally posted the wrong social media post for another client.
Oh, no.
And the other client saw it and said, hey, I'm not a pest control company. Why did you do that? But here's what she did. Not only did she put the wrong post on there, but then she put the right phone number. So it was very misunderstanding. So that would be like a 911. Let's fix that. But beyond that, nothing is it's not a do or die. Now,
Right.
It is in the eyes of the business owner because it's their business. We're trying to create more business for them. But the big thing is, this whole idea is I'm going to work harder. It just wears you out because here's the thing. We all need some recovery time, right? It's like you wouldn't go to the gym and work out 24 hours straight. Or you wouldn't
I
even
would,
go, you wouldn't do it even 2 hours
I
straight.
was gonna say I wouldn't go at all. So it's
There you go. But so because what happens is our muscles need recovery. And, if we think about it, our brain, our body is nothing but a culmination of muscles, and we need to give ourselves a break. So I think this next one, which is called the death of the grind culture and why it's quietly failing people, is really what we're talking about here is when you're constantly, and stop me if I'm wrong, Leslie, and I want your input on this, is when you're constantly under heavy duty pressure, what's your chances of failure? Is it higher or lower?
oh, it's always higher. Always. You
So
just
if
can't do it.
Yeah, so if you don't give yourself some recovery time and you're always in this grind, well, I'm going to force my way through this and get an answer, you're going to be like this situation where my staff accidentally posted the wrong thing on the wrong social media post and then put the right phone number on there. I'm not saying I overworked them, but maybe she was grinding, right? And so I think there's a quiet failing there, people. What do you think?
I agree. Again, it comes back to are we doing are the things that we're doing, are they the right things? And um, do we feel like we need to grind? Right now I feel like I'm going through a grind because I'm trying to work in my business instead of on it, which is
Mm.
against my better judgment, but I have no choice right now. It's a
It's a
temporary
season.
Yeah, it's a temporary, well, no, it's not even the season. It's I've got people to train, and the person who used to train left. And so I'm having to do it myself, which is fine, perfectly fine, but it's throwing all of my balance out of whack. I feel like I'm
Mhm.
grinding, trying to get through all of this stuff. And at first I felt like I had failed in a way even though we have written procedures for everything, even though all the right processes are in place for this to make it simple. I felt like I had failed because I have to temporarily work in my business instead of on it.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
not a failure at all. It's temporary. It's just something we have to do. It's part of the ebb and flow of business. Once we get these people 100% trained, then they can train people. You know what I mean? It's like train the trainer.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of doing that, but too many people get caught up in the daily grind of work. And it's the same work all the time, right? It's like it causes you to lose your enthusiasm. It causes you to feel like you're spinning, you're standing, running in place. It's just, you feel like you're not moving forward, and you're probably not,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because if you have goals and they're out here and you're staying here running, 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 doing the same thing every day, you're not reaching these goals at all. Right. So I think that, and the world knows this. I mean, I'm seeing stuff, and I don't know if it's because of the algorithms of what I look at, but I see stuff all over the place about um, uh, standardizing your business and finding a way to make it more efficient and choosing the right things to work on and all of that stuff so that people don't find themselves on that hamster wheel, just grinding
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. This next piece is how, well, let me ask you this, is the death of the grind culture and why it's quietly failing people. So if somebody feels like they're in that grind culture, because the goal is not just to expose the problem, but also, I think you've even said this, hey, if you're going to come put a turd on my desk, you better have a solution to clean it
That's right.
up.
Bring me an
So
option. Yeah.
yeah, so when we talk about grind culture, how do we get out of that grind culture?
Well, the first thing is consciousness. If somebody can make you aware of it, because here's the biggest problem for small business owners especially, is that they can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
So quite often they know the right things to do, but they're stuck doing the wrong things and don't know how to change it. That's where working with somebody like myself or somebody that is experienced in eliminating this and reframing things to bring consciousness to people, because once you have consciousness, then clarity comes, then you have a better idea, your enthusiasm returns. I mean, there's all these things that can help you. But the first thing is consciousness. You have to be aware there's a problem. You may feel like there's a problem, but you can't see it. So talking to somebody else who's been through the same thing is very, very helpful, whether it's a coach, a mentor, a cheerleader. If you need me to bring pom-poms, I'm happy to do that. Whatever it takes to help you see what you're doing and how it can be different.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it, if somebody's listening to this or watching this and they say yes to this, then they may be in that grind culture.
Yeah.
You feel like you wake up every day and it's the same process. It's just a different day. Nothing's changing.
Groundhog Day.
Is that a clue?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then, sure. And then here's the other thing is like, okay, and I'm probably gonna piss a few people off by saying this, but some people love that. That's their, as you said earlier, that's their badge of honor. Like, yeah. Oh, I grind. That's who I am. Everybody knows me. Oh, that's a grind. But the other people say, I don't want to do that forever, but I don't know how to change it. And that's what
successful people don't do that, Jeff. I mean, truly successful people know what we're going to talk about next, which is how to put systems in place and how to educate your people and how to delegate properly. They understand how to do that. That's why you can see, these billionaires, millionaires, thousandaires, whatever, working and still going to play pickleball every day, or still going out with their family or taking a vacation. They have mastered this elimination of the grind. And it isn't very hard. It isn't hard necessarily to do. It requires you being conscious of what's happening for you and the business. And the badge of busy is not a good badge.
Yeah.
And I wore it for a decade. I understand. And I knew better. And I wore it for a decade also, because you can fall into that trap and it's just hard to get out of. So the steps are not difficult, but the consciousness and clarity can be a challenge when you've been doing the same thing the same way forever.
Yeah, I'll give you just a little hint before we go on of something I did in my business. Is when I started, now almost 16 years ago, when I started Swing Point Media, I was kind of doing everything. And then I realized as I added more clients, I couldn't do everything. So I looked and said, who is the first hire that I need to have that can relieve me of the stress so I can still take care of my customers? And if I add new clients, won't blow me up. And so when I discovered who that was, I went out and hired them. And, it's one of those things I know you did it differently. You started out and you said, hey, I'm going to hire somebody before I've had any clients, which really is kind of cool. But when you're in the grind, sometimes you have to say, wait a second, I'm in that grind. Who do I need to hire? So I did that. And then I kept doing that to a point where then I had that mindset of, well, I can do this part better myself. And this was like video editing. And then I realized I couldn't keep up anymore. And I hired a video editor. And when the content came back and it was so much better than what I was doing, it was at a price that was like, why am I doing this? And the speed at which it got turned around, because here's the thing, this person wasn't trying to do 10 things. They were only doing one. They were video editing. So they did it really, really well.
And quickly.
And quickly. So when you realize that, they kind of know all the tricks of, in this case, we use Adobe Premiere Pro. They knew all the tricks of that. And so they do something. I'm like, how did you do that? And they would, and I'm like, oh my God. And I've been working on it for 5 or 6 years. Didn't know that because I was doing a lot of other things. So I think the first thing is, hey, recognize you're in that pattern. What can I do to get out of it? Who's that first hire that I need to have that will take that? It could be an admin. It could be somebody answering your phone.
Yeah. And well, I was going to say that most of the people I talk to that I coach and mentor are telling me that they can't afford to hire somebody.
Yeah.
But by the time we're done with our sessions, they understand that they can't afford not to hire somebody, because you can't scale your business, right? If you don't if you don't have help, if you can't delegate to anybody, if you can't focus your efforts on the right things for your business at this time, because you can't scale. That's what you found out. If you didn't, once you started to outsource some of your workload, you found out that you could scale because they can do it faster and quicker. And in your case, because I know who you hire, for less money than it's your time. That's the other thing I tell people. How much per hour is your time worth?
Yeah.
Right. Because you're diluting your income if you're the only one doing things, which I know we're talking about tomorrow, but it's just a matter of understanding what that grind is and how to fix it.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to the next one. This is one that we're probably getting a little hair on the back of your neck and little, how AI plus automation are exposing inefficient operators.
Oh, absolutely. This is one of my favorite topics because, I have a software system that I market and license out to people to give them the automation they need, automation of time tracking and stuff like that. But what AI does for you, if you're already inefficient, it will expose or enhance your inefficiencies, right? Because it's just going to take what you give it and say, okay, do more of this. And that may not be, it's going to enhance your inefficiencies. So you have to find out, what do I need to change in order to become efficient, become more productive, right? So if you automate the system you've always been doing, all you've done is made a computer do all the bad things you're already doing. Right?
That's right.
And so you want to make sure that you re-engineer those business processes so that they are more efficient. And again, it's that consciousness and clarity about what is different. What can I do differently? If I want to get to end result A, what do I have to do for B, C, D, and E so A comes out the way I want it?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the same way.
No. And I just want to share with you a reality of things that we're doing at Swing Point Media that is exposing this inefficiency in operators. Let me give you an example. This is a system called Make, and it helps us automate information. And so what I did is I said, well, let's create a series of AI agents that are put into an automated system that can do all my, I'm going to call it lead generation and converting for me. Like right now, while I'm sitting here, it's working. And so
what's an agent, Jeff?
An agent is, just think of an agent as a new employee that you train, and then it just goes and does its job. You just say, hey, what hours you want to do it? How many of every day do you want to have it happen? And then it will go do it. And this is what we've done. And we're building these now. We've got one for Leslie as well. But it does four things. I have the first one. It's called a discovery engine. Think of it an agent. All they're going to do is they're going to go, it's almost like saying, hey, go through the yellow pages, and I want you to find all these businesses that start with this and do this. And I want you to put them in a list. And I want you to make sure they really are good people, that they really are real businesses. Then the next agent does research on them and says, okay, this is who they are. It's how long they've been in business. Here's the owner. Here's their phone number. Here's a follow-up. Here's their social media stuff. This is all this stuff right here. Then what happens is it creates, it sends it to the outreach composer. This outreach composer agent says, okay, based on all the stuff that you got, I'm going to put together a strategy on how to send outreach messages to this particular business that starts a conversation, not selling them, but starts a relationship with that business owner that could lead to a sale down the road. Then for fun, I said, well, let's build a follow-up agent that once this person is sending something out, or excuse me, I say person, once this agent sends something out, then this one follows up until one of two things happen. They sign up or sign off. All of this is happening outside me doing this podcast. It's just working.
So to put that in a different context, because you get into AI speak and that can be confusing for people who aren't as familiar with AI as you are. So what you're saying is it would be like hiring somebody to go out and research, do some manual research to find potential clients for you, right?
Yeah.
And then do the initial reach out to those people to introduce Swing Point Media to them and to talk about what you could possibly do. And then it would be another person that would actually follow up if they responded, right? And then
Even if they
that,
didn't respond, we
even
would
if they
follow
didn't
up with
respond,
them.
it'd be so many times it would go through. And
Yep.
either they have to unsubscribe from it or they have to engage you,
That's
right?
correct.
So
That's
it's like a
correct.
human being doing all these processes, and instead you've automated that so
Yep.
that a computer can do it for you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one of the beauties of AI. Anything that's repetitive, research related, data related, email related, you can automate using AI, right?
Yeah, and Leslie, somebody might say, "Well, wait a minute. I have Joe or Mary that do my phone calls and they follow up." Here's the thing: I can guarantee you, and this is that exposing inefficiency, is having them work alongside this system will make them better. Because here's the thing: these systems just do their job. They don't care. Like, I could have it work 24/7 if I want to, but I have them work during business hours and 5 days a week. They don't work on the weekends. I respect that. And, but what happens is it just does what it's supposed to do. You have 4 different agents, 4 different employees, if you will, that are extremely good at what they do. And when it's like an assembly line. Hey, this agent did this. Now it's done. It's going to pass it to this employee, then to that employee. And out comes what? The outcome we're looking for. In this case, a potential new client or a conversation I might have. And so working alongside that would be so much better. But if you don't have anyone in your business doing outreach, building that, what if you had something this is always working while you're out fixing plumbing or you're carpet cleaning or you're window washing or you're cleaning solar panel, whatever it is? We go out and do that. So that's how, this is just one little freckle. If you think about sand on a beach, this is one grain of AI idea that could be put into a business that would make your business so much better. And the cost is crazy cheap.
Well, that, to me, that's not really exposing inefficiency. I think the inefficiency would be that a human being might not always follow up in a timely manner, might not pursue an opportunity with the same impartiality that the software does it, right? So that's a benefit, because I know for myself, when I go to mixers and I collect business cards, and yes, business cards are still a thing, even though people are trying to get away from them and use digital. I hate digital. I can't remember to follow up with a digital thing. I'm sure there's a way to automate that as well. But if you come home with a batch of business cards and you need to reach out to at least some of those, if not all of those people, they could be fed in even to a system like this that said, okay, now you do the follow-up and continue to follow up until we get something to work on it. Whereas a human being says, okay, you become overcome by events, right? The phone rings, something else comes up, a client needs help, whatever, and all of a sudden it's been several days before you reach out. And the trick to effective marketing and networking, correct me if I'm wrong, is the response time. There needs to be a very short response time. You need to, because again, society has expecting immediate information. So you want to follow up right away. And I think that can expose an inefficiency in that way. In my world, it's more inefficient of how I keep track of time. Right. If I have a discipline problem with somebody who doesn't enter their time every day, and I create an automated time collection system, which I have, and we put that in for somebody, and the people still have a discipline problem, it's going to expose even worse that problem. I'll give you actually a really good example. I had a lady do a demo with me the other day who has that exact problem. She has a timekeeping problem. And so she wanted something really simple to be able to enter time. And at this basic level, yeah, you can go and enter time easily in my system. However, if you use this one other form first before you try to enter time, it will automatically create a time entry for you. And
Mm,
if the person doesn't complete it, if they don't go ahead and do their time entry, then you have visibility to it. So, in the one respect, it's a manual entry that you have no way to track. In the other, if you use this form so that it creates it, the system creates it for you, now you can track whether they're completing their time entry or not. Right. And that gives you visibility to it. So, the automation of time entry is great, but in a manual context, you don't have a way to make sure they're following the procedure. If you implement this form first, which is also electronic, then the system tracks for you whether they've done the job or not, whether they've completed the time entry. So by the time I was done explaining that to her, she was all about, I want to use the form because at first she thought it was just one extra step, one more opportunity for failure, one more opportunity for a problem. And I said, but here's the benefit to you. You will have visibility if they haven't completed their time entry. And so that's kind of the difference between AI or automation exposing inefficiency. If you have a process problem and you input a process that's automated, then you have to have a check for that too, right? You can't just say, okay, go enter your time manually because they haven't been doing it now.
yeah.
Right. So it will expose where you have holes if you use it, if you implement the right things and you use it properly. So that's just an example.
Yeah. And before we jump off of this, I just want to share another example of how inefficiencies, a few months ago, maybe just inside a year ago, we had an electrical problem that needed to be handled. We had some remodeling going on in our kitchen, and there was something happened, and we didn't know who to call, but it happened in the evening. And so my wife says, Google it and find an electrician. I said, okay. So the first one I called, it was late. I wasn't going to call you. So anyway, the first one I called is standard. The old, I'm not available. Leave your name and number. I'll get back with you as soon as possible. Well, that just didn't work because I needed somebody right then, right? So the next one I called, it answered, and I had a conversation with it. Now, because I work in this world, I knew I was 99% sure, Leslie, that this was an AI voice agent. Right. But the point is we had a conversation. It asked what the problem was. It looked at the calendar. It says, hey, I can have that person out there within an hour. Do you want to book it? That's what I was looking for. So here's the thing. Both people, they paid to be at the top of Google. And then they had the wrong system in place, had an outdated system. Versus the other guy that was the second in Google that I called because I went down the line, and they had an AI voice agent that had a conversation with me, had the ability to book an appointment, and then also notify that particular person to come out. The gentleman came out in less than an hour, took care of it. We even talked about it. He said, I've told that guy. He said, he's a friend of mine. He needs to update his system. I said, it cost him money. That particular job was about a $600 job. That cost him even 50%. It cost him $300. He could have paid for a whole month of AI voice agent and beyond, but He didn't do it. Even to this day, that company has not done this. So to me, that's not leveraging that AI.
Right. I was thinking while you were talking, all you had to do is go to ChatGPT and type in 24-hour plumbers, within this zip code and tell me who to call. And then you would only call the right ones to begin with.
Except I was looking for an electrician. That would have screwed
I meant electrician. Okay. Whatever.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. So let's talk about the difference. Yeah, let's talk about the difference between activity versus leverage. This is my favorite one.
So what I think when you say that is the difference for, like, let's take networking and marketing, for example. You can go to a zillion different chamber mixers and organization stuff and try to build relationships with people, or you can build them with a few people like we do in BNI, and then they can also go out and market on your behalf. So to
Mm.
me, the difference is your activity versus, two hands versus 4 or 6 hands. If you can complete or create collaborative partnerships with people so that have your best interests at heart at the same as you do, then you can get a lot more stuff done in a shorter amount of time. Now, did you mean something different than that?
No, I think that's dead on. I mean, that's a perfect example. It's one of those things that I use this term a lot. I said, is this making my boat go faster? In other words, the activity that I'm doing right now, is it making me closer, further away, or neutral to getting my goal achieved?
I'm
And if
always
it
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's not, I think if that's activity, but is that really leveraging my time? Because we all say this is like, wait a second, if we looked at a guy like Jeff Bezos and we looked at Leslie Spoor, who has more hours in their day?
We
Oh,
both have
wait,
24 hours.
they
Yeah.
both have 24. But how does Jeff Bezos get so much more done? Because he leverages every minute, every hour, just differently. If we learn
Right.
to do that, you can have that same, or let's say you can have a higher level of results without being like and excuse the expression, a chicken with our head cut off running around because you're so busy,
Yeah.
but you're not really getting anything done.
Busy is a really bad word. People throw it around loosely and way too often. The word busy in and of itself, in my opinion, has no meaning because how do you describe busy? When I do time studies with people, specifically for this reason, because they're telling me they're too busy to do this or that, I say, okay, tell me what you do every minute of the day. I
Mm.
don't care if 15 minutes is on Pinterest. Just tell me what you're spending your time on so that we can accurately evaluate what is helping you further your goals and what is not. Because quite often I feel like I waste too much time. Now, if you start telling people all the things that you've done or things I do, they think I'm crazy. How do you get so much accomplished? I just happen to be high. I have high output. I can put out a lot of stuff, a lot of content, a lot of whatever quickly. I don't know how I do it. I just do, but I still feel like I waste a lot of time. And probably, I assume I do. Sometimes I think about that. Well, what if I was doing this instead of watching TV right now? I mean, I could do even more. But most people, by and large, have good intent and they want to get their business farther down the path, but they just don't know how to allocate their time properly. And generally, again, it just takes consciousness. It just takes some clarity. It just takes somebody to reframe it for them so that they can look at it in a different way. I just had somebody tell me one of the nicest compliments I ever got, which was I helped them renew their enthusiasm for their business.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Because they were stuck on that grind. They were doing the same things day in and day out, day in and day out. And they felt like they weren't making any progress when in fact they were. In fact, I told her, you're one of the few people I meet who actually knows all the right things to do. You just aren't doing them.
Mm.
And in her case, she needs an action item list. She needs somebody to say, do this, and then this, and then this. She needs an action item list, which I'm happy to put together for her, which then helped her get going in the right direction, right? Because she just didn't know how to prioritize her day, even though she knew all the right stuff to do. So it was really fun, and I took that as a huge compliment.
Well, before we get off this, because you kind of opened the door, busy is, what if we reframe busy as, that's the time I'm spending that is not producing anything for my business. And I don't mean it as a negative thing. It could be like you saying, okay, I'm going to be on Pinterest. It could be me saying, I'm going to watch an episode of, XYZ on Apple TV. It's not a negative thing. That's my time to take care of me. My busy time is to nurture my brain, is to not get into a grind, is to allow some recovery.
Right.
That is okay. What if
It
we did that?
Well, it is okay as long as you have the discipline to go back to the business. One of the risks of working from home, and you and I both have been doing it I've been doing it for 20 years. You've been doing it for over 16 years, is the discipline that you must have as a home-based business to not let distractions completely derail your whole day.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens, right? Oh, you're going to throw a load of laundry in while you're working. Well, that's all fine. You can do that, but you can't let it be a distraction to the point where you go, well, now I'm going to go sit down and watch XYZ. And now I'm going to go shop on Pinterest for a little bit. No, well, maybe I'll go work on this craft thing I got started. You can't do that. You have to be able to have the discipline to come back and sit down and get, and for some people that means I need a list of to-dos for the day. And once I get those done, once I've crossed them off, because there is a psychology to crossing things off a list for people. They automatically feel like they've accomplished something when they cross something off.
Yeah.
For me, it's really more, sometimes I make lists and it's because I need to take that stuff out of my head and put it somewhere else, because then it frees up my mind. And when I go back and look at it, I've already done most of it and I can cross it all off. But to take it out of my brain frees my brain up for other activities. I generally always have too many tabs open, both on my computer and in my head. So take some out is good. But, just when you're talking about activity versus leverage, activity in and of itself is a great thing. It's just what activities and what can you take and then collaborate somewhere so that other people are helping you get there. Like I pay my people commission for a new business brought in. Right? I'm the primary person that's out marketing and networking and trying to bring in new business, but I also reward the people that work for me if they bring in new business. So that means I've got 6 pairs of hands in addition to mine, also thinking about, hey, could this person that I meet possibly be a client?
Yeah, sure.
Right? So there's lots of ways to do this, and there are a lot of different contexts, but there is a difference between being the single person doing activity and the leverage of extra hands.
So we're talking about why working harder is making you broke and what actually works now. We're covering some, I think, some very key points. This last one is, I'll call it real talk, that where entrepreneurs are wasting time without realizing. I know you have a way to overcome this. But no buts. Tell us how you overcome this with people who said, I'm not getting everything done that I want to get done. And we all have 24 hours. Jeff Bezos, Jeff Harrison, they have the same 24 hours. How do we overcome that?
I think in order to bring consciousness to it, you need to do a time study. And that's where you sit down and you track everything you do. And I don't mean minute by minute, but maybe in 10 or 15 minute chunks. What was I doing here for 10 minutes? And then, okay, now it's 10:15. What am I doing for the next 15 minutes? So that you can get some clarity and understanding of what it is, how you spend your time. And in a perfect world, you do this for a week, because one day is really not quite enough, because you're conscious of it, you're aware that you're doing it, and so you may be a little more productive on those days. But if you do it for a week, the real you is going to come out, and then you can review it, or I can review it with you, whatever. We can review it and say, okay, how much of this time is busy work, not furthering your goals? How much of the time is actually working on your business to drive it forward and make it scale? And how much of it is time that doesn't need to be done at all? Quite often I've used the example of my newsletter, right? When I first started my business, I've been writing newsletters for 20 years. And in the beginning, they would take 8 to 12 hours, each one to write it, to find images for it, to format it for delivery, all that stuff that, getting the fonts right, headers, all that stuff. And then I outsourced the formatting and the images to somebody else. And so that cut my writing time down to about 4 hours per newsletter. And today with AI,
Wait a minute. So because I know you do a newsletter every week, one for each different business. So that one decision saved you 16 hours a month.
For one.
No. You
Oh,
said 4 hours for each.
from 12. So 8 times 4 is 32 hours.
Well, no, you said you were spending 8 hours creating a newsletter, and when you
Yeah.
hired somebody to format it, it took it down to 4.
Oh,
So
okay.
4 times 4 is 16. I mean, that's over half, almost half a work week.
Right. And then I took it down to I can do 4 in an hour now. I don't
Mm,
have to because I'm using AI and automation, and because I've taught it everything about my business, and it knows how I write, it knows my voice. When I say it knows my voice, not my speaking voice, but the voice that comes through my fingers onto the printed page. It knows my voice. So it writes like me, it sounds like me. And so people are I still get the great feedback I've always gotten, but now I can do 4 in the time I could do 1 after outsourcing the formatting. So the point is that you're able to identify what you're spending time on and how much of that can be outsourced, or how much of it can be eliminated. Quite often I work with people that are doing things that have nothing to do with furthering their business. They're good
mm,
things. Or, like, for example, my first 6 months in business in 2006, I was doing all the fun stuff, writing the content for the website and getting the website built, doing the brochures and business cards and all the creative stuff that's really fun to do to me. I enjoy doing that and working with a graphics designer and getting all that done. And in 6 months, I thought, wow, I kind of need to go out and get some clients at this point, because that stuff's all fun. But, I was not driving clients the first 6 months. I was just doing the fun stuff. So if you want to be successful, you absolutely have to bring in some clients at some point, right? So
Yeah, I think another one of those pieces, and then we'll move to this last point, is this. People, because I'll say there's a lot of AI education out there, and everybody and their brother-in-law are making videos on new tips and tricks because this changed, and this Chat GPT 5.5 came out, and Claude Opus 4.7, all this kind of stuff every day. And so what happens, it puts this pressure on you, like, well, I have to watch this. And here's a 15-minute video. Here's a 1-hour video. Here's a 40-minute webinar that you're on. And all of a sudden you're spending a lot of time on it. And you have to step back and say, well, wait a second. Did I really need to know all of that to make my boat go faster and more towards my target? No, you didn't. And so get out of that mindset of I'm learning all the time, but I'm not producing. As what Leslie said, hey, I spent all this time for 6 months, but I didn't really generate any activity to become a client, for somebody to become a client. And so when you realize that, you look at the end of the day and said, hey, what did I really accomplish? Look at that to-do list that Leslie mentioned. Did I cross anything off? Go ahead.
You and I've had that conversation many times, because you're an avid learner, right? You love, and if you don't know, the people who are listening, if you don't know, I do coaching for Jeff also. He also helps me brainstorm. So together we make a really good, complete business mind. But you love to learn, and and there were years where that you were spending a predominant amount of your time learning. It's always a new webinar. It was always a new conference or seminar to go to. It was always a new book to read, which is great. But you already have more knowledge than the average person, and you could be teaching. I'm not kidding. You could be teaching this stuff that you're still trying to learn. Now, in this day and age, AI is a constant learning endeavor. And because that's a huge part of your business now, you do have to keep up with it. But there are a dozen or more different options, and it's easy to get sucked into these other new things that get released, and you kind of need to stay not 100% where you are, because otherwise technology is going to pass you by. To some degree, you have to move into new and better tools, but you don't have, how's a better way to say this? It's kind of like your phone. You don't need to upgrade your phone every time a new one comes out. Right? You can use it until the thing stops functioning properly. Okay. Because they do come out with upgrades within the phone version that you have. Eventually, you'll have to upgrade it completely and get a new one. But you don't always have to do it right this minute. My son-in-law is like that. He has to have the latest and greatest the minute it comes out, right? Why? It's still going to have the same software version in it. I don't quite get that. But in your case, that was the thing for you, is that you kept learning and learning and learning, and you are so smart now. You really don't need to keep doing that to some degree.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that one opportunity just to say this is now I still scan things, but my filtering question is this something that is going to change what I'm doing? Can I use this to make it go faster? Is it if you're a cyclist, is it a lighter weight rim that will trim off 20 ounces and I can go faster? Is it reducing the weight of the frame? If it's not, then I usually say, great, I know about it now, but I'm not spending time re-engineering my processes that I shared earlier, because it's not going to really make me go any faster. I have to stay abreast of things, like, as an example, as I build these things earlier, I showed you these scenarios are called these automation workflows, because now I say, okay, well, they're no longer using this particular level of LLM. They've addressed and they've moved on. Like if you're using Chat GPT 5, well, guess what? It doesn't exist anymore. And so if I use that system, it won't work. So I have to update it. So I have to be aware of those kind of things. But if it's just general knowledge, because every day you can get just sucked in, like somebody I really love listening to, her name is Sabrina. And Sabrina is a genius. And she is somebody who every day puts out content about what new is going on. That's her business model,
right?
Is to educate. But if I got drawn into that too much, I would constantly be repainting my walls every day, and the last coat hasn't even dried yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I'm like, is it really going to make my boat go faster? Is it taking me to or from my target? And if it doesn't do that, pass. I know about it, but I'm moving on.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
So the new AI thing that you created that does lead generation and follow up, I'm going to call it that. Can that then be plugged into the content accelerator so that it can automatically create marketing materials for those specific? No, I guess not. I was going to say, could you market to them using the content accelerator? But it automatically does that, so you don't have to. It does. It's not something extra. Okay. Just question.
Like the cool thing about that, Leslie, is like when the creator, the third agent, if you will, third employee, I don't have to go in and say, well, let's make for Leslie, let's write it this way. No. It's already done the research and it's determined what is the best way to communicate with Leslie. What's the language? We saw your posts on this, that, and the other. We saw you got a promotion or whatever. It will then say, okay, this is how we're going to address Leslie, and it'll create the content. I don't have to worry about that. It's a thinking, acting model. So that's kind of
amazing. Cool. I know, it's amazing.
So,
all right. Well, what's the last of this? Because I think people are starting to get tired.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and this kind of puts that bow on it. What if the thing that you're most proud of is actually holding you back? In other words, I know everything about everything on AI, but just because I read about it, I haven't built one thing. So I don't think by just accumulating the knowledge without applying it, I think that's not learning. That's like saying, okay, I'm going to go to college and some professor, no pun intended, no negative thing intended, they're trying to teach me how to run a business and they don't own a business. They've never run a business in their life. I'm sorry. I would rather learn from Leslie, who's run business, been a consultant for 30 years, because she's got the nicks on her knees and she's got the wounds that said, hey, this is what we did to make this happen. I'd rather do that.
Yes, I have bruises and scars for sure.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we do this podcast, right, is because we've both been twisted, bent, and exhausted. But some days we still are, and so the whole point of this thing is to, and correct me, I mean, I know that we agree on this because we've talked about it a lot of times, is that we want to help other people avoid the pitfalls and mistakes that we've made.
Absolutely.
Right? If we can share what we've learned over the last, for me, believe it or not, 50 years. Oh, ow, that hurts. If we can share what we've learned, then somebody else can get there faster.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like technology. We're a brain of technology, of knowledge. So take advantage of it and learn from us, because believe me, we do have the bruises and the scars and the bang ups and the bumps and all that stuff from doing it wrong the first time. So we know.
Yeah, I just want to. We mentioned it a couple of times, Leslie. I just want to put that on the screen there. Somebody might say, "Well, you talked about this 5-day challenge. It's called the 5 Days to Freedom Challenge." Leslie, tell us how they get in touch with you on that.
Yeah, you can go to my website, conciergebusinesssolutions.com, and there is a page called the 5-Day to Freedom Challenge under the Education tab. And all you have to do is sign up for a consult on that, and we can schedule a 5-day. Now, it's important to understand that these challenges are one-on-one. They are not group settings. It's a one-on-one tailored to your specific business. It's 5 hours, 1 hour a day over 5 days, 45 minutes to an hour over 5 days. And we really get into your specific challenges and what opportunities are in front of you to help you scale into success much faster. Sometimes it's reframing. Sometimes it's doing a time study. I mean, things vary from participant to participant, but if you want to know how effective it is, there are video testimonials on that page, conciergebusinesssolutions.com/ and then there's hyphens, the -5-day-freedom-challenge. But you can just go to the education tab and select 5 Days to Freedom, and it will tell you. I have a whole freedom series, actually. I just had a book published on Amazon called Freedom by Design, and it talks about that happy path and it's called the Happy Path Framework to building a self-running business. And that's what we want, right? In my opinion, that's the page on the website. And down at the bottom, I believe, are the testimonials. Yeah. Oh, where's the fourth one? Oh, I need to talk to you about that. I forgot. Those are 3 of them. There's another one going on there. So that you can see what other people have actually taken the 5-day challenge, what they thought about it. And I encourage you to do that. I mean, it's free. Why would you turn down a free business assessment? That's crazy. So sign up with me and I'll help you the very best that I can.
Cool. All right. As always, Leslie, this has been a blast. If you like the episode, do me a favor. One favor. Share it with someone you think it can help.
Right.
And if you didn't take notes, I encourage you to go back and take some notes, because there were some very important things we talked about here that could get you off that hamster wheel and get you going forward. It could do things like, it could save the relationship with your staff. It could change the relationship with your spouse or loved one, because all of a sudden you're not working all the freaking time and you're still being successful. So that's my one ask.
All right. Well, I'm up for that.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us again for another episode of Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Jeff Harrison with Swing Point Media, along with
Leslie Spoor of Concierge Business Solutions.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Oh, remember, this is 1 of 4. This is the first episode. So make sure to tune in next week for the second episode when we talk about, hey, you're the problem. Let's get you out of that. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye.